Cancer. Dear Cancer, this is your month, but perhaps not in the way you expect. When people hear that several planets are moving through their sign, they often assume life will become easier, more comfortable, more predictable. But that's not always how growth works. Sometimes when the universe shines a spotlight on us, it reveals not only our strengths, but also the places where we need to grow. And that's exactly what June 2026 is doing for you. This month is deeply personal, deeply emotional, and potentially because the sky is asking you one very important question. What happens when you stop taking care of everyone else for a moment and start taking care of yourself? Now, Cancer, I know that question can feel uncomfortable because you're naturally nurturing. You're often the safe place for other people, the person who remembers birthdays, the person who checks in when someone is struggling, the person who gives emotional support without expecting anything in return. But June is asking you to turn some of that care inward, to nourish yourself with the same compassion you so freely offer others. For much of the month, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are all moving through your sign. And whenever planets gather in your first house, life becomes personal. This isn't about what everyone else is doing. It's about you, your needs, your identity, your growth, your future, and your relationship with yourself. Many Cancers may feel more visible this month, more noticeable, more emotionally aware. You may become increasingly conscious of what feels aligned and what doesn't, who supports your growth and who drains your energy, what brings peace and what creates unnecessary stress. And while this awareness can sometimes feel overwhelming, it's also incredibly empowering because clarity changes everything. Now let's talk about one of the most beautiful astrological events of the entire year, June 9th. The meeting of Venus and Jupiter in Cancer. Cancer, this is extraordinary. Venus governs love, beauty, connection, pleasure, abundance. Jupiter governs growth, blessings, expansion, opportunity. And when these two planets meet in your sign, they create something special. For many of you, this may feel like a reminder of your worth. A reminder that good things are allowed to happen to you too. A reminder that receiving is just as important as giving. You may notice people responding to you differently, opportunities appearing unexpectedly, compliments arriving more often, support coming from surprising places, or simply a growing sense of confidence. A feeling that you're finally stepping into a more authentic version of yourself. And honestly, you deserve that. You've spent so much energy caring for others. June reminds you that you're worthy of care too. Now let's talk about relationships. Because love takes on a particularly meaningful tone this month. From the beginning of June, emotional intimacy becomes more important. Superficial interactions may feel unsatisfying. You want depth, honesty, authenticity. You want to know what's real. And around June 17th, a beautiful connection between Venus and Neptune enhances romance and emotional sensitivity. This can feel magical, heart-opening, inspiring. You may feel more compassionate, more understanding, more willing to trust your intuition. Some Cancers may experience meaningful romantic developments. Others may simply reconnect with the emotional beauty already present in their lives. This is a wonderful time to express affection, to say what needs to be said, to appreciate the people who matter most. Then toward the end of the month, another important shift occurs. Venus forms a supportive aspect to Saturn, and suddenly emotions become more grounded, more stable, more reliable. This is not only about romance. It's about commitment, trust, security, and building something that can last. Relationships that survive this energy often become stronger because they're rooted in honesty rather than fantasy. But there is another lesson unfolding beneath the surface, and it may be one of the most important lessons of June. Boundaries. Cancer, you don't always struggle with caring. You struggle with knowing when to stop caring. You sometimes give beyond your limits. You sometimes carry responsibilities that were never yours. You sometimes sacrifice your own well-being because someone else needs help. And June gently asks, what if loving people doesn't require abandoning yourself? What if compassion and boundaries can exist together? What if protecting your peace is not selfish, but necessary? Pay attention to where your energy is going this month. Your emotional well-being matters. Now let's shift toward career and purpose. Because while this month is deeply personal, it's not disconnected from your professional life. In fact, many Cancers may find themselves becoming more visible, more recognized, more influential. The Sun's supportive connection to Saturn around June 2nd helps you focus on long-term goals. This is excellent energy for planning, building, organizing, and thinking strategically about the future. Not everything needs to happen immediately, but something important can begin now. Then around June 19th, Mercury connects positively with Mars, and this gives you something powerful, your voice. You may feel more confident expressing your ideas, more willing to negotiate, more willing to advocate for yourself, more willing to step into leadership roles. And Cancer, that's important, because your sensitivity is not a weakness. Your empathy is not a weakness. Your emotional intelligence is not a weakness. These qualities are strengths. The world needs leaders who understand people, and June may remind you of that. Now let's talk about health and well-being, because this is one of the strongest themes of the month. June is asking you to pay attention to your emotional health, your physical health, and the connection between the two. Many Cancers are incredibly intuitive when it comes to other people's needs, but not always when it comes to their own. This month encourages you to create new self-care rituals, better sleep, more rest, more hydration, more movement, more moments of peace, whatever helps your nervous system feel supported. Because emotional stress often shows up physically, and emotional healing often improves physical well-being too. Pay attention to how your body responds to people and situations. Your body is communicating valuable information. Listen to it. Then on June 19th, Chiron enters Taurus, and this begins a longer period of healing and stabilization. You may find yourself becoming more aware of what genuinely supports your well-being. Not what looks healthy, not what works for everyone else, but what works for you. That's an important distinction. Around June 21st, many Cancers may experience a stronger sense of inner balance, a feeling of emotional resilience, a reminder that healing doesn't always happen dramatically. Sometimes healing happens quietly, one small choice at a time. Now, let's talk about the end of the month, because this is where the story becomes especially meaningful. On June 29th, Mercury stations retrograde in your sign, and Cancer, don't panic. Mercury retrograde isn't here to ruin your life. It's here to help you reflect, to review, to reconsider, to understand. Because Mercury is retrograding through your first house, this becomes deeply personal. You may revisit old decisions, old relationships, old versions of yourself. You may recognize patterns that need to change, or wisdom you've gained that deserves more attention. Think of this as a period of integration. The universe is giving you time to absorb everything you've learned. And then, on June 30th, we arrive at the full moon, one of the most emotionally significant moments of the month. This full moon shines across the Cancer-Capricorn axis, the axis of personal needs and external responsibilities, the axis of home and career, the axis of caring and achieving. Something becomes clear, something reaches completion, something asks to be released. You may suddenly realize what is no longer sustainable, what no longer aligns with your values, what no longer deserves your energy. And while letting go is not always easy, it creates space for something better. If I could summarize June for Cancer in one sentence, it would be this. You are learning that caring for yourself is not a distraction from your purpose. It is part of your purpose. This month reminds you who you are, how far you've come, and how much growth has already taken place over the last year. June begins with blessings. It ends with wisdom. And somewhere in between, you may discover that the love you've been searching for starts with the relationship you have with yourself. Now let's move to Leo.